is Shawn Osmond, and I'm a wife of 13 years to my husband Curtis, and I'm a mom to two amazing kids, Olivia, who's 10, and Jake is 8. And I'm active in my church, and I volunteer in my community. I'm with First Coast Women's Services, and my life is pretty great today, although that was not always the case for me. And for most of my adult life, I felt like I was a disappointment to my family, to myself, and to God. And I believe that started for me when I was a senior in high school, when I got pregnant. And my boyfriend and I made the decision to abort our baby. And we did this without any wise counsel. We didn't tell anyone, even our parents, and we did this on our own. And then we closed that chapter on our life, and we never spoke of it again. And to be honest, after that abortion, I actually experienced some relief. Fast forward 2 years later, and I am a freshman in college, and I get pregnant again, and I make the decision to abort my second child. And what I began to experience was overwhelming sadness and guilt and shame. And I just was suffering from emotions I'd never experienced before. I thought I was going crazy, and I couldn't go to anyone with it because no one knew my secret. And I certainly couldn't take it to the Lord because I had sinned so blatantly against Him. So I just tried to deal with it the best that I knew how, and I just shoved it down and tried to ignore it. And I started drinking pretty heavily. Whenever the pain would come, I would just drink, and it would take the edge off of what I was experiencing. And when alcohol stopped working for me, then I would turn to food. And by the time I was 21, I was on my way to being a full-blown alcoholic. And I had a terrible eating disorder. And on the inside, I was struggling in so many ways. But I was able to put a big smile on my face and shove everything down and just continue on with my life for a really long time. I graduated from college and I moved to Dallas, Texas. And that's where I would meet my husband, Curtis. And we dated for a few years and got married, decided to start a family, but I wasn't able to get pregnant. And I think those emotions started bubbling up to the surface again. I was so worried that maybe this was going to be my punishment, that God was not going to allow me to be a mom because of what I'd done to my children. But the Lord did bless me with the ability to get pregnant. And I remember the first time that I met my daughter, Olivia. It was on an ultrasound monitor, and she was 12 weeks old. And I just remember seeing her little fingers and her little toes and that heart beating so fast. And I think the reality of my abortions landed on me in that moment like a ton of bricks, because I could no longer deny that the babies that I aborted were in fact children. And I was so sad. But my daughter was born, and she was beautiful and healthy. And then 2 years later, her brother Jake came, and our family was complete. But it occurred to me one day when I was playing with my children on the floor that I shouldn't just have 2 babies, I should have 4. And once again, those feelings were just right there at the surface. I was home a lot with the kids alone. My husband worked crazy long hours in the restaurant business, and he was gone a lot at night. And whenever I started suffering from depression or sadness or anxiety, I chose to drink. I started drinking to deal with the stress of being a mom, and I would drink when I was happy and I would drink when I was sad. And it just became a pattern for me for many years of starting to have my first glass of wine at 5 o'clock in the evening, and I would drink through dinner time, the kids' bath time, story time, and I would drink pretty much every night until I fell asleep. And my husband was gone in the evenings, and he knew I was drinking, but he had no idea how much because I was really good at hiding it. It just occurred to me one day that I was not being the wife that I could be, and I certainly was not being the best mom. And so I made a decision that I was going to stop drinking. And I tried to do it a couple of times, and I was never able to do it in my own strength. I tried. I really did give it all that I had. But whenever these feelings would come back up, I would always turn back to alcohol because I didn't know how to deal with them. Finally, in the summer of 2008, I told my husband, I'm tired. I want to stop drinking. I want to do it for you and for our children, and I want to do it for me. And so I enlisted in an outpatient treatment program there in Texas, and that's where I would meet my first sponsor. And she basically told me, Shawn, if you want to get well, then you need to meet Jesus. And she introduced me to him. And she started showing me the importance of a daily quiet time. And she taught me how to pray and to listen for his voice and to do that daily quiet time. And in that first year in recovery, I made some huge changes. And through the 12 steps of AA, I was able to deal with a lot of the things that had caused me to drink. But the one thing I still didn't know what to do with were those abortions. I mean, what do you do with that? And my sponsor told me, she said, if you will ask the Lord to provide healing, he will be faithful. And so that was my prayer my first year in recovery. God, just show me, please, what to do with this. We got the call from my husband's company that we were going to be moving to Jacksonville, Florida. So we loaded up the family and we started on our way from Texas to Florida. And I'd only had a year of sobriety at the time, and my husband would later confess that when the children and I would be sleeping while we were driving here, that he would just cry because he was so worried about me and my sobriety and what would happen when we moved to a place where I didn't have a support system and I no longer had my sponsor close by. So it was important for both of us to get connected into a church very quickly. And so as we were driving up and down 3rd Street, we saw a church and we just kept passing by it. And so finally we just stopped in, and they were so kind and open and welcome and told us about service times and programs. And we left church that day and my husband said, this is where we are going to church, which was funny to me because we didn't even know where we were going to live yet. And we got connected very quickly. And I went to the pastor who was on staff at the time and asked him where I should volunteer. And in my mind, I'm thinking women in crisis, eating disorders, drugs and alcohol, things I had some experience with. And he sends me to First Coast Women's Services, which is a Christian crisis pregnancy center. And so I went and applied, filled out an application, met with the director, and in the center of that application, there's a question, and it asks, are you post-abortive? And I almost put no on that application, but I had learned in recovery that it's my secrets that keep me sick. And so I chose to write yes. Handed that application back to the director, and then I was going to hightail it out of the center. And before I was able to get out the door, the director said, Shawn, I see here that you're post-abortive. And I turned to her and I said, yes. And she said, well, we offer a program, and it's called Forgiven and Set Free. Would you be interested in taking this study? And I just started to cry, and I said, yes, I would love to take the study. And in that moment, I felt like the Lord just opened a door for me. And I walked through it and I did the study. And it was in the study that I really understood the depth of Christ's love for me for the first time. And not only that, I saw so clearly that the cross is big enough for all sin, even my sin of abortion. And that study so profoundly changed me that I decided that this is how I wanted to serve. And I went through the training to become a facilitator. And I've been teaching these classes for the last 3 years. And it has been such a privilege and such an honor to walk women who are hurting in this area just like I was, and be able to show them the depth of Christ's love for them. And then to be able to just walk them right into the arms of Jesus Christ. It's a blessing and it's an absolute honor, because we start this class in bondage to the sin of our abortions. And then we're able to come out on the other side in complete freedom. And this is what I know. After 20 years of running from the Lord as hard and as fast as I could, when I just turned to him and finally said yes, he provided healing for me. And not only that, he took the darkest, saddest parts of my life and he redeemed them. And now he's using those experiences that I have in that area for his glory. And that's the awesome God that we serve. He's a God of mercy and he's a God of grace. In Jeremiah 29:11, it says, I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. Plans not to harm you, but to prosper you. Plans to give you a hope and a future. And that's what Christ has done for me. He's given me a hope and he's given me a future.